Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of 3GIQ. I am joined by my co-host, Matt Gunlock, and also Mike Pannone coming on for yet another episode. So, Mike, appreciate you joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.
This episode in particular, we're going to start off by talking about a recent experience that Matt had with some instruction, and then we're going to use that as a means to get into a conversation about instructorship and what constitutes good instructorship. But it's going to lead into a larger conversation about the divide between the military and tactical and I'd say law enforcement communities and the practical shooting communities. There's a bit of a Venn diagram there. I'd say that we're all kind of in the middle of that. We exist in both worlds. However, there are some differences between those communities that become more spotlighted in the past few weeks. I'd say this continual conversation about what constitutes good shooting. So, Matt, we'll start with you. Could you tell us about this course that you took?
All right. So I went to this course down near my house. It's in order to get DCJS standards taken care of to train security personnel. So I went to this course, me and day one, we go into the classroom, sitting down, and the instructor comes in and he's like, hey, go to this website here. I want you to read this chapter of the state regulation for DCJS standards. Take 30 minutes, read that. I'll be back. He comes back 30 minutes later. He's like, hey, did we read everything on firearms? I was just, and we're just like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. Go ahead and open the next chapter. Read that. I'll be back in 30 minutes. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, so we're having to read this whenever he came back, I was like, hey, so let me get this straight. Like, this is the first time I've taken like a civilian course. Like I took the NRA firearms course before, and that alone was a fucking joke. But whenever he came back, I was like, hey, so what are we being tested on? Like the administrative knowledge, what are we being tested on? He's like, oh, you're not going to get any kind of written test or anything. It's just as long as I feel that you understand what's being taught, and I feel as if you're going to be safe on the range. And I'm just like, well, we're not going out to the range. We're not messing with weapons. So how can you feel safe with our skill sets if you never even see us dry fire or do anything like that? How are you evaluating me and knowing what I am there to learn? So that kind of set red flags off from the beginning. And that was
real
day
quick,
one.
Matt, did you feel like that's just something he starts off every class with, or did you feel like he was trying to buy time because he was unprepared?
Well, I don't know if it was a matter of unprepared. I think this is just how they do it, to be quite honest with you. Like they can get away with charging $700 for these courses and not really do any there's no oversight. Like there's legitimately no oversight besides like the shooting portion where they record your target, get the score sheets and all that. Like there's no oversight on your understanding of the laws that govern, instruction of security personnel.
I guess where are most of the students coming from?
All around the Northern Virginia area.
Mostly law enforcement, or?
No, it's all security personnel.
Okay. Mike, we'll get to you, man. As soon as he said $700, I saw you have a connection, so we'll definitely have something to say about that. But Matt, continue with your story.
All right, so that was day one, and that's literally how day one started. Day two, again, no shooting. We went out there in order to observe people requalify. And so I didn't know Adam from Eve, other than the other people that were in my class. And so he's wanting us to essentially be positional safety officers, one person on each student, and they're just doing a requalification. For one, there was no demonstration conducted, live fire or dry fire, for those students. They're there for requalification purposes. So the idea is that they already know what they're supposed to do. And clearly, like from the very beginning, these people couldn't draw their guns, safely. They couldn't conduct a magazine reload safely. They had their fingers on the trigger when they were conducting reloads. They had their pistols off to the side whenever they were doing the reloads, down at their waist, not up in front of their face. And like after they got done with the 3-yard line, they went back, well, let me talk about something else. After you get done with 1-yard line, he has you pick up each piece of brass that you fired, taking 10 minutes from firing, put that away. And then like I asked him, I was like, hey, there's a severe lack of safety here in terms of drawing and reloading. Can I do like a quick 5-minute class just to, show them how to properly draw their pistol and how to properly reload, because I don't feel comfortable being here. And at first he was like, well, you know what, go ahead. And so I did. We went back to the firing line. These people qualified. And I'm just like, that's all we did. We went back to the office later, and this is the part that pissed me off more than anything. The other instructor showed up because there were a series of 2 instructors that were taking this class on. So the other instructor comes in. He has his entire resume written on the board. Oh, I was an FBI instructor. I was a Secret Service instructor. I was Blackwater. I was this. I was that. I'm a sheriff's deputy. Like just going down everything. The first thing that triggered me was going down the fucking resume. Like I don't care about your resume. I'm here to learn something. You show your credibility through your actions and what you can and cannot teach. And then he had us go around the room. And I was just like, whenever it came to me, I was like, well, I just retired from the Marine Corps, did 20 years. I was an infantry guy, and I retired from the Marine Corps shooting team. Next, done. When it came to us qualifying, again, no demonstration. We're expected to know what the qualification is. And, that was that. We all qualified. It was fine. The thing that really pissed me off during the qualification portion is he was stood next to me, shooting next to me. And, first couple shots, she threw a couple rounds high. They were still on target, but she threw them high. And then here's this dude, the one instructor who had to read his entire fucking resume off. And he's standing right next to her. Oh, so why did you throw those rounds high? And, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And the entire time we were qualifying, he was standing over her shoulder, which that alone pisses me off more than anything, because now you're just focusing on a female shooter because there's a female in the class rather than paying attention to everybody. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, let her qualify. You don't need to stand over her fucking shoulder.
All right. So a lot to unpack there. But some of the highlights that I brought out was it didn't really feel like a professional course.
Nope.
Kind of seemed like some of the instructors kind of showed up and shot from the hip. Not literally, they just kind of showed up and did it. Probably did what they're used to doing because they don't get criticism for it and no one calls them out on it. It sounds like they suck the fun out of shooting. Like the whole brass call every yard line. Like there's an easier way to do things, guys. We can just brass call at the very ends and we can make it a much more efficient process. We don't need to bog down the shooting and the actual instruction by doing that every single time. It also sounds like they stifled initiative. You said that you wanted to do like a hip pocket class on draws, and I think it's partly they weren't willing to share their stage with you, but also they weren't willing to deviate from whatever curriculum it was they had in mind. Dependence on experience and credentials, we've talked about that already. No demonstration. So out of all those things, I kind of want to center on a no demonstration. Mike, if I told you there was an instructor getting paid $700 that didn't demonstrate actual drills or fundamentals in front of their students, what would you think?
I would think one of two things, and there's so much stuff that I could comment on just from what he said. But one, they're very likely incompetent. They're just not good at it, and they don't want to showcase that they're not good at it. Then that's why the bluster, the bio part of it. Okay, if I wow you with my bio, something that Matt said, like I don't care I don't care about your bio. I'm here to learn something. The problem is he doesn't care if you learn something. He's there to tell you his bio. Do you understand? Like, you guys are inverted. That when you do that, when you show up and you don't demonstrate and you put an emphasis on your bio, what you're telling me intuitively is that you're not very good at shooting and you don't want to show me that. And so you want to wow me with who you used to be in another life. That is incompetence. That's malfeasance. That's avoidance. There's nothing good that comes from that. And it's obvious that they don't want to do that. They don't want to shoot in front of you, especially after they told you I'm a fucking superhero and I've done everything under the sun. And people are like, okay, toe the line and show me. Like, I don't know. Like, I tell you, there's so many things wrong with that. And it's so predictable because when you lead with that, you're building this persona up and you have nothing to back it up, as opposed to just stepping up the line and go, yeah, I was a cop for a while and then I do this and then shoot. And they go, oh, wow, that guy can really shoot. And then later on in sidebar discussions at loading tables, like, oh, what did you do as a cop? Oh, I was here and I did this. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You shoot really good. It's inverted because there's no skill there. That's why. And the taking up time, there's nothing to fill space. Those guys are making money. They're money for nothing and checks for free. That is the policing brass at every yard line. Like you said, man, there's so many better ways to do that. What you're doing is purposely burning time to eat up the clock. I gotta spend 8 hours. There's a lot of requirements in certain training venues where it's done by the hour. It's, training to time, not to standard. We all have experienced that in certain military courses where it's like, no, this is a 16-hour block, so we're going to spend 16 hours here. And that's what they're doing. They're filling time. It's so predictable. It showcases a lack of concern because they're not. If someone voices safety concerns, if I don't see it and you voice a safety concern in my class, I'm pissed at myself. Like, how did I not see that? How did I not pick that out? What? Okay. When you voice a safety concern, that forcefully, and they're like, nah, we're good. Like, it is incompetence at every level. It's malfeasance as an instructor. You're taking their money because you've got a captive audience. You have some venue where you are allowed to charge that regardless of what you provide, really. And as long as the blocks are checked, I make my check and go home. It is terrible at every level.
And I want to add, because I kind of forgot to mention this part. All three of us here, we're all competitive shooters. I would also venture to say we're quote unquote tactical shooters. We have shot in the military, under tactical constraints. So therefore we're tactical shooters. But we also understand the benefits of competition shooting. When this individual straight up in front of the class, and I'm sure it was because I was there and I mentioned that I was on the Marine Corps shooting team, he had the audacity to say, competition shooting creates training scars. That is the biggest line of horse shit I have ever heard in my life. And for some people, it's not for them, but to stand up in front and say, hey, competition shooting is going to get you killed, that's a problem. Like, training is training, whether it's competition or not, because you are competing. Like, the way I look at it is when you are competing, something like what JJ Racaza said, you're able to process information at a much higher rate of speed whenever you are going through a stage. And that alone will prepare you for a tactical situation because you will know your limits. You'll know how fast and how slow you can go, and you know how fast you can take shots fast and accurate. And he said the quintessential boomer, boomer saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, accuracy is final. And the thing that pisses me off about that, and we all have said this part, slow is slow, fast is fast, and you engage your target as fast and accurate as you are capable.
Dude, I don't even like the term competitive shooting. It's high performance shooting in a competitive format.
Yeah.
And guess what? High performance shooting in a competitive format on a range, in a USPSA match or a 3-gun match, is just non-lethal, hopefully, unless somebody's really fucking up. But it's non-lethal. It's high performance shooting in a competitive format.
Yep.
Okay. Another high performance shooting and competitive format is going to be, I don't know, Ramadi or Marja. Okay. That's high performance shooting in a competitive format, except the winner stays alive and the loser doesn't.
Like it's all performance on demand.
Exactly. It is your ability to demonstrate high performance shooting in the proper application. I get sick of it's a dodge go, oh, competitive shooting. Immediately people think, oh, you're at a range and you're shooting paper. It's high performance shooting done in a competitive format so that we can quantify it against our peers and see who's the best, who has certain techniques or capabilities that are in excess of the others for evaluative purposes, or for the ability to take that from them and go, I learned something from you. We shot a match and you do a certain thing with your rifle. You set up a certain way that I didn't think of. Now I learned that when I moved to a barricade, which is, if you want to translate that across high performance shooting in a combat environment, is using cover, the side of a wall. How did you set up to shoot off the side of a wall is how you set up to shoot off a barricade. It's just, if you do it wrong in a match, you just don't hit it fast. If you do it wrong in a combative environment, you might get shot. Like I don't even use the competitive shooting anything anymore. I just use high performance shooting. It's high performance shooting. Competitive shooting, I mean high performance shooting. It may be done in a competitive format on a range, or it may be done in a competitive format with an adversary.
I want to call out something. You posted something on your Instagram, Mike, recently. It was a video of there's some dude on a highway just like popping shots, and like the entire part of the highway had been closed off. And a cop went after that guy and shot tire 17 rounds through his windshield. But he was driving a car that was meant to be used as rolling cover.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't hit any of his shots.
Mm-hmm.
He got too far in front of his team. So arguably, like he didn't do shooting well. He didn't provide cover well. He didn't work together with his team, and ultimately, thankfully, somebody else took that guy down. But he was probably so focused on jamming rounds through that windshield that everything else just went through. Everything else just went out. He wasn't able to focus on anything else.
Didn't understand jobs and responsibilities. First of all, well, all three of us know this from our military side. Drivers drive, shooters shoot.
Yep.
If you're driving, your job is driving. It's not shooting, because you're not going to do either one well. Shooting through a windshield is a fool's errand. Those bullets are going wherever they want. They're not going anywhere particular. They're going wherever they want. So you're ineffective at shooting and you're ineffective at driving. So now you failed at across the board. It's a freaking fail. So I don't know where. I think there's a current training culture from certain companies where they overemphasize shooting through the windshield because it looks cool on Instagram. It looks sexy on Instagram. It's fun. You can go back and show your girlfriend or your fucking guys that you hang out with, or your fucking, your son or daughter. Oh, look at your dad. Look at your buddy. Look at your boyfriend. Girl, whatever. Look at me shooting through the windshield. It looks all badass. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It is ineffective. That's why I was never, outside of a roadblock drill that was specifically oriented towards rifles, where you put the muzzle right up against the glass and you're trying to break an ambush at a roadblock, which is very specific. That's the only time we ever did shoot through the windshield stuff, because everybody realized when we actually put targets out there, you can hit two things: jack and shit. You can't hit anyone with a pistol through a windshield unless that guy is standing on the hood of your vehicle. So it's like that alone, there's so much wrong with that. And I don't blame the officer per se, although he is responsible for it. I blame the people that trained him. Okay. When I run a vehicle class, I have a guy sit in the vehicle and shoot. I will stand next to the vehicle, or I'll have one of his partners stand next to the vehicle. Okay. He's looking at that guy. When that guy draws his gun, as soon as he draws his gun, the officer, with a seatbelt on, hands on the steering wheel, draws his gun and fires a shot through either an empty windshield or through the glass. Okay. If you're good and you're drawing from a level 3 retention rig while seated in a vehicle, that's 2.5 seconds. Okay. That's 2.5 seconds. Now take reaction time in that you see me move third of a second, maybe. Okay. So I'm going to be shooting for at least 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. If you're good, if you're on point, that's a bill drill through your windshield. Like and you can't hit anything. When I put paper up, you fire a shot through the windshield, you don't even hit it. Like it's that is not reinforced enough. So like when I look at that shooting, that guy actually shot every one of his magazines. If you look at the whole video, which I didn't post, the entire video, he's bumming magazines off his partner while he's driving and running his gun and reloading it and stuff.
Yeah.
He gets to the incident and he's got a and that's all he has. Like that thing is an abortion from A to Z.
It's
But it's
pretty
like,
bad.
and there was no effect. They ended up stopping, dismounting, and then addressing the guy and killing him. I'm like,
Yeah.
you created an unsafe environment through complete lack of self-control and incompetence, and you disregarded your primary duty, which is to drive the friggin' vehicle. So you're shooting like shit, you're driving like shit, you're having no effect other than throwing bullets all over somebody's town. I'm like, dude, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing but wrongness there. Yeah.
Somebody was hungry to try and get a CONUS kill.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't even think he was focused on anything in particular. He's probably just in panic mode because he wasn't doing anything. If anyone wants to watch this, look at this video, it's on Mike's Instagram. We're going to tag him. It's the real CTT Solutions. But my point was, if you knew enough about ballistics and you knew enough about how to like run your gun, you probably wouldn't have tried to shoot all those bullets through the windshield. Probably would have focused on just driving the car well, providing cover for all those cops that were behind you, getting shot at by a random dude on the highway. But I just want to bring that up because I thought it was relevant to what we're talking about.
It is marksmanship done poorly and tactics done poorly.
Yeah, but a bit of comedy and a bit of tragedy there. I want to move into our next question. So we're starting to see conventional firearms training institution of qualifications and military experience get challenged by practical shooting. And the most present, like the most recent development, I think of this was Matt Pranka and Ben Stager had like an Instagram live with Travis Haley and one of his instructors. And they were basically calling out Haley strategic and some of the things that their instructors were doing and saying like, hey, that's not sound. What you're doing isn't actually good practice. Stager's kind of marketed himself on that. He will actively go after people who are teaching stuff that isn't really kosher. But I think there's two sides to it, right? On one side, we have the OIF, OEF veterans that are using their experiences, their qualifications, their participation in major conflicts to market the credibility of shooting instructors. On the other hand, we have some practical shooters who they don't necessarily have the operational or tactical experience, but they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible in practical marksmanship. Do you guys think there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle? And is there a way, are there things that each side can like learn from each other? Mike, I'll start with you.
Okay, I absolutely do. The lens that we view training through, or skills or capabilities through, or techniques through, all your TGPs, the lens that we view that through is experience. Okay, and so if you understand what you are trying to prepare for, then you understand what is good preparation or not. So, and that's the preface. So I see a lot of emphasis on sub-second one-shot draws at 7 yards and warp speed stuff with perfect body alignment, waiting for a 3-second delay, no movement. I'm staring right where I'm going to shoot. What you have removed are all of the peculiarities or inconsistencies of an engagement. Shit never happens while you're standing staring at somebody. It doesn't, because your rifle or your pistol would already be out. If I'm looking at you and you're that much of a threat that I might have to put the boots to you, I'm already going to have my gun out. Okay. Also, it is an on-demand capability with so many specific parameters. I am standing in a certain way. I get to dry draw a couple times. I'm waiting for a timer on a 3-second delay. I'm at 7 yards. I'm only firing one shot. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of there are a lot of things that in the industry where they're chasing a timer that don't have direct application outside of that. So the way I view it is I go, okay, from my experience, and I don't sit there and go, this happened to me or that happened to me. I just go, from my experience, do you really believe that you are going to be able to produce and fire a shot in under a second reliably if your life depends on it? And the answer is no. It's too problematic. There are too many failure points in it. You'll also see when people do this, they have a specific garment, they have a specific holster, they have a specific gun. That's not a real gun that they carry. It's a full-size gun with a comp on it and a red dot on it and a flashlight on it. And so what you get is the Uber game side. Now I'm chasing a timer versus building a capability that on demand I can utilize to save my life. And so there is a part of the experience, the military overseas experience, that I think is hugely beneficial. I see it in the vehicle stuff. People, there's an inordinate amount of emphasis on, dancing around the front seat and shooting left and shooting right and all that. Dude, it doesn't work. You get killed. If I ambush you in your vehicle, then that's where they find your body. Okay, so all the dancing around, it's not going to work. I'm not saying if you get ambushed in a vehicle, don't try and get your gun out and shoot back, but I'm telling you, it's in extremis and it's ineffective. Okay, so there's from a practical experience, from being involved in operations where we were interdicting vehicles, it doesn't work. You don't get to win that one. I look at an ambush with a firearm as a sucker punch with a gun. There's no counter to a sucker punch done properly, and I'm like, that just you just get knocked out. That's just the way it goes. So there's the understanding of it from a practical OEF kind of experience where you go, hey, when bullets really fly around, one, people act differently, and two, it doesn't happen like it does on a square range. That is important. Okay, full stop. The other side of it is you got to be able to shoot. You got to be able to toe the line and shoot matches and shoot competitively. You have to stand there and show people that you have a higher than average, a markedly higher than average capability with a rifle or a pistol. And then you use your experience to guide the training. But it's like they're both, but you don't get to just throw a resume down and go, I was a superhero, in fucking Fallujah, okay? Or I'm a superhero in the Nationals. There's a combination of the two that gives a benefit to the combative shooter. If you're just doing pure sports stuff, then just go to a pure sports shooter. But there's stuff to be learned from it. I just think it's a blend, and I think a lot of guys rely too heavily on their experience as a story versus their experience as a way to view training.
That was incredibly well said, Matt.
Well, how do I follow that up? I guess what I'll say is what I have seen and what I see in the military, both is a lot of people, what they'll say is, oh, I don't need to do this. I don't need to learn this. I learned how to shoot whenever I was in combat. I got my combat action ribbon. I have legitimately seen people say, I don't need to learn that, or I don't need to participate in this because I already have my combat action ribbon. So they're essentially saying, I have nothing else to learn. So whenever you have people like that who are unwilling to continue their journey of learning, now you have this inherent problem. Like Mike said, your combat experience is that it's experience. Don't use it as clout, use it as a learning point. Hey, at this one point in my life, I had the opportunity to do this, and this is what I learned from that. And one thing I'll say about the whole combat action ribbon and all that other bullshit is, oh, you probably didn't fucking hit anything. Like, just because you have a combat action ribbon doesn't mean you hit anything, doesn't mean you killed anybody. It just means that you got engaged and you engaged back. That's all it is.
Let me throw something out there for you, man. It's one of my mantras, one of my fucking mantras. Participation doesn't equal proficiency. Just because you were there doesn't mean you were good. It just means you were there. Okay. Yep. When you're out, out rolling with the freaking crew, everybody knows who the killers are. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows the guys that get it done. Everybody does. They look around like, hey, that dude's dangerous. They look and go, that dude. If all you're saying is I was there and so I know better than you, just stop. Just stop. I'm uninterested in that. Okay, just because you showed up. Hey, thanks for checking in. Thanks for getting your overseas stamp. Got it. Thanks for getting your car. Looks great on your uniform. That's exciting. Or your CIB. I got it. I don't tell me because you have a badge or a ribbon that somehow that tells me anything because I wasn't there with you. Because I've seen people that have been in a bunch of freaking gunfights that are no good.
Yeah,
they're not at all. They have no composure. They have no marksmanship skill. They run a gun like a fucking novice, but they were there. So that what your participation makes you somehow a superhero? No. And I've seen dudes their first time at the party and watch them like, dude, that dude can bang. Like that dude's legit. And gone to their platoon sergeant and go, you need to keep an eye on this guy. This is one of your dudes, man. This guy's one of your killers. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so like that's why participation doesn't equal proficiency. Anytime they do that, you just stop. It's a resume thing again. It's like, I don't have to show you I'm any good. I don't have to, keep pushing on the journey and get better and learn more. I check the block, bro. Thumbs. Fuck that. No.
And I do a lot of self-reflection and like for me, for instance, okay, I have all that experience. I have that stuff I could talk about. I don't talk about it unless I know people I'm talking to. But yes. Like I judge myself in terms of, am I capable of being a good instructor? What mm-hmm. skills do I bring to the table? And I know I do bring skills, but it's like, I look at myself as a person of, am I going to give these people the type of training that they need? Am I going to be able to perform it well? And am I going to do it justice? So, yeah, I have the experience, but I am there to teach people how to shoot other people, plain and
Yeah.
simple, and do it efficiently and effectively. And you can't go in there with this clout of your resume. You have to go in there. Am I going to fuck up? Am I going to do these people justice? Am I going to teach them everything that they need to know in order to stay survivable and stay alive?
If you go
And
on emphasis as your resume, then the emphasis isn't on the student.
Yep.
yeah, and it didn't really sound like the emphasis was there when you took that class, Matt. It just sounded like they were just going to go down the curriculum the same way they had 100 times before. But if you're there as instructor, like your students are there for a reason. They paid you that money. They want to learn from you. And sometimes the threshold of skill level might be super low, and you might have to go super basic. And sometimes it's super high, and you can kind of skim over the basics, and you can get into some of the higher echelon stuff. It's a shame, really, a wasted. That was an entire week that you spent on that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
That's
rough.
yeah, God.
Yeah.
Just stole your life for literally doing nothing but showing you how not to do it, which you already know.
Yep.
Like I look at stuff like that. What I want to know, I want to know the best way to do something. I want to know a better way. I look at it like when I went through like jump master school or friggin' dive supervisor or something. I don't care how many wrong ways there are. I need to know the right way. There's one right way, and then every other way is some variation of wrong. But I don't need to learn your variation of wrong. I'm not interested. I want you to show me something I don't know that makes me better. And they don't, that it sounds like that guy didn't care. He was cashing checks and massaging his ego. And that is just, when you're talking about things that result in gunshot wounds, it kind of pisses me off. Like,
and I guess I'll add this to the whole thing. Let's say this was me 6, 8, 9 years ago. Would I have known any different? Probably not. And so this is one of the points I wanted to really talk about. You are only your only understanding is what you know at that time, and to a lot of people this might be the latest and greatest thing out there, and it's all you know. But you need to do your research, you need to do your homework on people, and you really have to criticize what is being taught. The only reason why I know all this shit is wrong is because I've seen everything done right so many freaking times, and so I can go in there and I'm like, this is fucked up. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
there's a template to it. It's like the briefing stuff. It's like doing a freaking op work. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. Only difference is on the range. After that, you demonstrate. So I'm going to tell. We're going to talk about reloads. Okay. Then tell them about reloads. Then hit the bullet points again about reloads. Then say, okay, everybody gather around. I'm going to demonstrate. Like the recipe is there. It's fucking. It's like when people don't do it, it's out of incompetence or laziness,
or both.
Yeah, a little bit of both, I would say, in this instance.
Yeah.
You guys have both touched on it. So we talked about qualifications, right? And I think the three of us largely understand that qualifications are a lowest common denominator thing, right? Like, what is the lowest threshold that we need you to be at so you're not a liability with your firearm? So just look like in terms of like how that could change. What is it important to have nuance in the systems that we use to appraise shooter capabilities? Like, instead of just saying like, oh, you qualified, we absolutely like need to show that there is some depth, kind of like the classification system, which has its own qualms, right? There's at least some kind of percentile way in which we assess like, okay, this guy barely met the mark, and this guy is like amazing and is constantly pushing the boundaries of what is possible. Do we lose something by painting everyone with a broad brush of the lowest common denominator? And what are some good qualification systems that we can draw on?
Well, one thing I want to say first is, what is a qualification for? It's to absolve the institution, no matter what the institution is, of any liability that can be held against them. It's them saying this person qualified, they knew what they were doing, they learned everything that they needed to learn. It doesn't matter if like Marine Corps, marksman, sharpshooter, expert, they know what they're doing. So it's on him. We can punish him rather than the institution.
It's a baseline demonstration of skill that's identified by the organization to mitigate liability. I can say that this person is trained based on these parameters. So it's the minimum and the maximum of the minimum. That's the problem with it. And they're overwhelmed because I went through this in the Air Marshal program before I went to Iraq. They want it to be obviously liability driven and definable, but they want it to be easy to score and easy to administer, and they want it to be easy to pass. Because if you start making people actually shoot the way you should be able to shoot if you carry a gun with consequence, it's not that easy. Like, really, no, like I've never done anything in my other life where when we got done, I was like, man, I had that shit. I was on, like, whatever. You're always like, damn, I could have been faster. I could have been more accurate. I could have seen something quicker. You're never exactly, nobody I know that's ever been in anything that was legit goes, oh yeah, I had that shit. Like, no. So you're always training and you're always learning for something that is very likely going to be impromptu and extraordinarily challenging. So a minimum standard doesn't do it. The desire to make it easy to score and administer is also a huge problem. And I think it's a laziness. It's an institutional laziness because it takes time, and they want people on the street. They want people in whatever their units are. Like what I use, it's called a marksmanship evaluation course. It's something that I took and modified and upgraded and adjusted off the Air Marshal program. It's on my website. You can print it off and all that shit. Anyway, it's a 50-round course for pistols, and there's marksman, sharpshooter, expert, but there's level 1, level 2, and level 3 for speed. So 3 is the slowest. There's 3, 2, 1, and then there's marksman, sharpshooter, expert. So you can be accurate and slow as fuck. You can be inaccurate and really fast. I've got a metric to quantify the relationship between it. It's a combination of speed and accuracy. And then I'll take the same thing, and if you and I, if the three of us shoot together and we both shoot level 1 expert, then we take all the times, we do it by hit factor. It's like, okay, it's you have to want to find information about your shooters as opposed to just absolving yourself of liability. And that's the problem. Institutionally, they want it to be easy, they want it to be fast, and they want it to be, liability driven. And until you get away from that, until your goal is not liability, but proficiency, it's never going to change.
I got something to add to that. The other side of that scenario too is the institution creates this standard that you have to qualify to, and then you do nothing but train on that standard. You don't do train past the test. You train to the test, and that and people are like, hey, I'm done. There's nothing else I have to do.
Yeah.
And that creates a level of laziness. And I'll say wholeheartedly, that's one aspect of the Marine Corps that I have seen throughout my career. People train to that standard and never want to go any further. And that's where a lot of our information and knowledge has been lost and forgotten. Back in, I would say between 2013 to 2016, we talk about OIF, OEF vets, guys who had this institutional knowledge of what it was like to go gunfight. The Marine Corps was kicking them all out, whether it was because of height and weight standards, tattoo standards, any of these standards. They were looking for a reason to kick people out. And so now you have this gap of knowledge and information of what it's like to be over in these environments. And so nobody knows how to train to those environments. We encountered the same damn thing after Vietnam,
War. We've done it after every war. We did it after World. When I was in AWG, when I was in the asymmetric warfare group, we studied it because we were dealing with trade opposite training. We did it after World War I. We did it after World War II. We did it after Korea. We did it after Vietnam. We did it after the Gulf War. And now we've done it after OIF and OEF. We've demobbed in a way that the goal was to minimize, was reduction in force. Get rid of anybody you can get rid of. Justify it and get rid of them. Also on the training side, one of the things that was really cool about Delta is I never shot a qualification, so to speak, outside of when you go through training because they have to quantify your performance. When I got to squadron, like, this is what you have to be able to do. Okay, if you're throwing shots in the house, they're going to go, you're not making the standard. There's no qual. I never shot a qual. I shot in the house, and guess what? You shoot a hostage, you get a warning. You shoot another one, you get a new job. Like, they don't fuck around. Usually it was one shot, they gave you a warning. Second shot, they'll dock you pay. Third shot, you get a new job. So 3 strikes, you're out. That's it. We're not talking like 3. We're not talking 3 in any short period of time. It's over an extended period of time. 4 months later, I hit my third hostage. in a fucking canned shootout scenario, they'll go, dude, this is the third time in the last 5 months that you shot a no shoot, you shot a hostage. Maybe this isn't for you. But the goal was the end state performance requirement. It wasn't the qualification is there to validate that the training is correct. I shoot a qual to see if my training is good. A qual is not training. A qual is a validation of your training, and people don't understand that at institutional levels. I went through it with the Army when I was doing that stuff for AWG. It's like, dude, they do great on the qual. So what? You got an ACOG and you can't hit an E-type silhouette at 300 yards? I don't care what your qual says. Like, I make you run to a barricade and shoot, and you're having trouble hitting it because you don't even understand how to use the reticle. But on the qual, it's all canned. You know exactly what you're supposed to do. You know exactly what the holds are. You know exactly what the positions are. When I make you run around and shoot a bunch of stuff without telling you what the distances are, the wheels come off because you're training to the qualification, and they don't. Institutions across the board don't understand that a qualification validates your training. It is not training.
Yeah, qualification is not capability. I want to bring the subject back to like some good qual systems out there. So Mike, I think you mentioned one. The one that I experienced that I liked was the one that we did up at SIG Academy. So it was a week-long rifle instructor course, and they would just spring things on him. It's like, hey, we're going to do a standard right now. And the standards are everything from shooting on the move, shooting different yard lines, like 50 yards in, switching to your pistol, lateral movement, retreats, all that kind of stuff. And there were tiers to it, right? You had to pass a certain amount of qualifications in order to get a certificate that said you actually passed the course. One of the guys didn't pass enough standards, and it said his certificate, I don't think he realized it because it was in cursive writing, but it said he participated, right?
Yep.
You participated in the course. But if you got every single standard, then I know that we're going to get, we talked last time about, giving out patches and secret underwear, Mike. But you would get a patch from SIG Academy, but only 2 people in our class. And we had some pretty good shooters in the class. I didn't get it. We had some former Marines. We had some other guys like competition shooters. Only 2 people actually passed out of like 15. So that's kind of what I was getting at in terms of having a little bit of nuance to how you're assessing things. Like, there's the guy who didn't pass the course. There's the rest of us that passed most of the qualifications or standards or whatever. And then there's the people that completely just blew it out of the water. And I think you need that because you need to have some perception of like, okay, I need to be here. This is where I can be if I want to stay with the pack. And this is where I got to be if I want people to like look at me and say like, that dude's a water walker. That guy can, like you say,
He can bang.
Yeah. So, but I want to bring that into like go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, I took the same course, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And it was, I didn't, I made it through. I mean, I successfully completed everything. I did good in it and it was the instructor course and all that. But it was difficult because it was impromptu. It was an impromptu.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, I know what to expect. Okay, I've got a strategy. No, it's like step 1. Hey, check it out. This is what we're going to do. You're like, oh shit. Okay. All right. And then my mind's going, okay, I got to apply this. Are you ready? Stand by. So it's like, to me, it was, some people thought it was unfair. I thought it was, very realistic. Like, just demonstrate your skill over a broad range of requirements. And it's like, if you're going to instruct, you should be able to do that. I do all the time in classes. We'll talk about something. We'll go, what if we did it this way? I'm like, I don't know. Fuck, I'll do it. Like, let's see. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll blow it out my ass. Maybe I'll do good, but I think it'll be like this. And then I'll toe the line and shoot a demo in front of the class on something I've never shot before that we just came up with at the loading table. But it's like, hey, if I can shoot, I can figure it out. And if I can't shoot, I will fall apart right in front of everybody. It's but like, I'm getting ready to go teach a covert carry instructor course in Texas. That you've got to pass the marksmanship evaluation course. Otherwise, you get participated versus successfully completed. Successfully completed means I endorse you. I think that you are capable enough at this skill to teach it. And so, I mean, everybody can't get a fucking trophy. Like, sorry, some people you didn't make a cut. You should have trained harder. I don't know.
And
you just said something that like really it made me think of something, and it has to do with concealed carry. Like, I know here in Virginia, like, all you have to do is prove that you were in the military and qualified with a rifle. It doesn't matter whether it was pistol or rifle. And you take that paperwork to the court and they issue you a concealed carry permit. And that in and of itself is fucking scary. Like, yes, I believe it's everybody's right to carry a gun, but holy shit, you should be fucking learning how to shoot. And we all see how a lot of these military shooters are. Like they can't shoot to save their fucking life, and they're all they have to do is say, "Hey, I qualified with a pistol or a rifle at this point in time," and now they're able to carry a fucking gun.
Go, go watch Qual Day with bulk fuel.
Yeah.
Or the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the SIG Academy though, that there's real ramifications for the guy that didn't pass those standards. He was a cop. He had to go back to his department with the cert saying that he just participated. He didn't actually pass the course. And that wasn't a cheap course over. It was over $1,000. We shot like 1,500 rounds.
Yeah.
So, but what was important was you mentioned that some people didn't think it was fair. I thought it was completely fair because every single time they said we're going to do this, the instructors demonstrated. They demonstrate everything, and if we wanted them to, they demonstrate it again. But they there's another topic I'll get into. But yeah, every single standard, they're like, this is how you shoot it. This is passing. I'm going to show you that it can be done, just so you know it can be done. Do you have any questions? Okay, go and do it. But also, I want to bring, like we mentioned this earlier, demonstrations are important. As an instructor, it's important too, because like you need to know that you can do that comfortably, because otherwise, how are your students going to accomplish it, right? Like if I'm demoing El Pres in front of a bunch of students, I'm not going to shoot it like I'm trying to hundo a classifier. I'm trying to shoot it so I can demonstrate proficiency, right? They don't want to see me out of control and spraying bullets. They want to see good hits and they want to see sound fundamentals. If I can't do that on demand, then I don't deserve to be taking money as an instructor, and I don't deserve to be teaching people how to shoot.
You kind of said something that made me think of something else. Whenever you go to a course, I don't give a shit what course it is. You should, you said you were talking about that one officer who had to go back to his department and show, well, I didn't pass. Here's another aspect. Like, I know whenever you go to a course, you should be practicing well in advance everything that you are going to be expected to complete before you go to that course. And that is something that a lot of people don't do. They don't prepare properly. They show up and expect it to happen. They think they're going to be getting this magic recipe while they're on the course, and everybody's going to fix everything that they have to fix. In reality, you should be fixing all your deficiencies prior to getting there, and then it should be nuanced little assistance while you are at the course.
When you show up, I'm going to identify your deficiencies, and I'm going to give you training strategies to mitigate them. You're not going to get all that much in 2 days as far as shooting skill. What you're going to get is a ton of feedback, and you're going to get a different way to view shooting. So yeah, if you don't prepare, if you just go cold, I haven't been on my gun for 7 weeks, and then I'm going to show up, and you're not already a good shooter, you're going to show up and you're going to be treading water with a weight belt around your neck. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. He actually reminded me of something that JJ said when we interviewed him a few weeks ago, Matt. He said that when he makes a correction in one of his classes, usually the shooter becomes a little worse in like the months afterwards. It's because they're implementing something new. Like you don't immediately come back from a class and be like, oh, I'm like I suddenly like leveled up or whatever. It's a new concept. It's gonna mess with the way you look at things, and it's gonna take you some time to implement that, but you're gonna be better for it. It's a long-term solution, not a short-term thing. There are band-aids that people can get. They can get a better race gun or get better gear, but ultimately, like the fundamentals need some time to gestate and get better. Sorry, Mike, what did you have to say?
When people start looking for equipment's fixes, it's not that it has nothing to do with that. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. I mean, I'm shooting a freaking stock Canik with a $250 Turkish dot on.
You look, man, a stock Canik, well, it's not quite stock, but a Canik shooting mine are just won limited nationals. So we can't talk trash about Caniks anymore.
It, man. This is it. It's a stock one with a little TLR7 on it and a little Turkish dot on it. Fucking cares. It's a pistol that's accurate, it's reliable, and the dot works. Go shoot. Like I'm yeah, if I have a SRO on a tricked out gun, I may be a little bit faster or a little, but it's nibbling at the margins. It's not going to change my capability. It's just going to change the performance. Like a really good Mario Andretti driving is still Mario Andretti driving, whether it's a fucking minivan or a race car. Like that's the thing. It's like people look at that and they think if they get this gun or get that gun, or if they go to this course at the end, they'll be good. No, all it's intended to do is enlighten you. It's intended to show you things that you can't see yourself. All right. It's external feedback that is hopefully specific and technical in nature that you can act on. Otherwise, just pull the trigger straight to the rear. Fuck, stop it. Like, I get that. Like, give me something more. It's more understanding, more on the vision piece. What is target focus? How does it work? We just implemented occluded dots. My partner Pat and I, he's a Long Beach copper for a long time. He was an 11 in the Corps for 6 years. Solid dude. We just implemented occluded dots because there are actually some operational reasons why. And we make you do it. We make you shoot for a couple hours with your dot occluded. Okay. If you don't ever want to do it again, don't do it. But you've actually got some time behind it to evaluate it. Not just once you go, oh, I don't like that. But it's like exposing people to different concepts and different techniques, and then let them do it. Like, hey, you do what you want. I want you to try this. And if you don't like it, I don't like, do what you do, man. But that is the point of training. It's not, you're not going to leave there appreciably better. And like you recounted from JJ, sometimes you're going to leave there and you're going to be worse because you're going to get new stuff and you're going to want to try and do it because you know it makes sense, but you're not good at it yet. And you're actually going to regress a little bit before you jump back up.
Yeah, it takes time to rework fundamentals. It just does. And it's hard work, which getting good at shooting is hard work. Matt, going back to that class you were talking about, did you learn anything from that class?
Not a fucking thing. I learned what not to do.
Yeah.
You already knew that, bro.
Oh yeah. Well, here's a one thing, and I understand liability and all that kind of stuff. And one of the other students was like, the instructor is talking about liability, and like you're the last person to teach somebody something. You're liable. Your name is stuck to that person. Here's the thing, like, and the problem I see with the industry, with the instruction industry, so much is nobody is willing to teach anybody anything because they want there to be many different steps in the process so they can continue making money. Like that's and so they're not willing to make those corrections because then they're like, well, you need to take this class in order to learn how to do that. And it's like, you know what, get the fuck over it. Just teach people how to shoot properly. Like, this is how you do it right. Like, I don't want to hear about liability. Okay, so I taught this person how to do this, and he dropped somebody. I shouldn't be liable. I taught him how to do it right. Whenever he goes in front of the judge, hey, you know what? I taught him how to do all this stuff right here. Here's all his scores. That's on him. Like,
unless you teach something that's technically negligent,
yes,
something you should not be doing.
Yes,
I'm think about liability. It never crosses my mind when I teach because I know that what I'm teaching is legitimate.
Yeah.
I'm teaching high performance marksmanship either from a duty rig or from concealment. That's it. The rest of it is your application. How you apply that is based on your judgment. I'm teaching you a high performance way to run a gun in a combative environment. Mm-hmm. The way what you do with it after that is yours. That's you. You're the one that made the decisions. And you can't. There's no way. People that talk about the liability thing, I don't know if it's a dodge or if they don't even understand it. I mean, like, you are not liable for someone else's actions unless you directed them to do something in a specific way that was negligent or unsafe or against the law. Mm-hmm. So I'm not worried about it. I like that whole liability thing is bullshit. I think it's complete bullshit.
It just ends up being another excuse to continue to do things the way they have been doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. To be mediocre.
Yeah. All right. So the next question I have, and this is a bit of a doozy. Do you guys think, as guys have deployed and like been in action several times, do you think as we gain more time and distance from OEF and OIF that shooting instruction is going to shift a little bit towards some of these newer concepts? I think it was good that you brought up the whole occluded dot concept, Mike. The Marine Corps shooting team is teaching that right now to Marines in the fleet. I saw guys running ACOGs occluded. it works. And the fact that in the military context, they are taking these lessons that, I mean, I know they originate from some other places, but are largely adopted by the practical shooting community and are now being used in military context is great. But yeah, as we get more time away from these conflicts, OEF and OIF, do you think shooting instruction is going to change? Do you think also that the technological advantages that we had in those recent conflicts has bred a certain form of like complacency in terms of how we approach marksmanship?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely there's the information technology, social media, and that stuff is going to have a huge effect. The fact that nobody before OEF, nobody really knew anything about the military. The military was like, it was just, overseas cop kind of thing, like push people through qualifications. There was, outside of specialized units, there was not really a lot of higher end marksmanship training, and there wasn't a need for it because we weren't in a high intensity conflict or two. Now you're seeing, I believe, an increase in that, the understanding of high performance marksmanship as it's applied to the military. I think what we're starting to see now is actually things becoming discussed and codified that weren't before. You talked about occluding ACOGs. That's been going on for years because it's a 4-power. You've got a competing image that's 4x versus 1x. My buddy Pat, he was a West Coast guy. He's a first MARDIV guy, but they were occluding them on ACOGs for that reason. When they would go inside a shooter, they put a cap on it because you can shoot with both eyes open like an old OEG, and you don't get the 4-power competing image, but you can still see the reticle because it's illuminated. So there's stuff that we did that was taught, to guys years back because it made sense. Somebody understood it and taught it. Now it's starting to get codified. Now it's starting to go like in the Marine Corps marksmanship unit. We're starting to get a level of validity to it. I think it's going to get better and better. It's just it's a long slog when you get on the regular side because they're big units and there's manuals have to change and instructors have to be taught. But the information and the technology and the combination of the two is out there and you can't ignore it anymore. I really believe we're going to get better, but it's not going to be as fast as any one of us wants, which is like by today at 8. Like
it takes a long time to change things that are entrenched culturally. And unfortunately, everything that we've talked about is incredibly entrenched culturally. Like the guys with all those resumes that they're just spouting off, unfortunately, that's been the paradigm, and it's just going to take time for that to go away. But
So
man,
I think you kind of brought up a good point. Marine Corps shooting team, I'll go with Army marksmanship unit. Fuck the Navy shooting team. That's not their primary duty. It's kind of a collateral duty. But you now have people who have this ability to instruct training, and their sole mission isn't just to go out and compete. It is also to provide training to the Fleet Marine Force, to the Army at large, to the Navy, Air Force, whatever. There are subject matter experts who understand how to train now, and they are going out and they are doing it. So, like, we are getting better and better. And with information technology, it's just going to get better. I mentioned it on an earlier episode, and I also mentioned it on another podcast, in regards to the Marine Corps shooting team. I think a lot of people forgot like that were on the team from I'll go with from the 70s all the way up until the early 2000s. I think people forgot what one of the main missions of the Marine Corps shooting team was, and that was to train Marines. All they gave a fuck about was going up to Camp Perry, Ohio, and competing in bullseye pistol and bullseye rifle. And
but
we
that
all
makes
know
them
that's
feel better about themselves.
and you could be fat and fucking out of shape on a fucking line and shoot. Am I saying that those sports are easy? No, they're fucking hard. But what do they bring back to the Marine Corps at large? What, am I going to get in a fucking loop sling and shoot somebody in the unsupported standing? Fuck no. But now we have a team that, reinvigorated their purpose and their image and say, hey, we are going out and we're competing, but we are going to do mobile training teams. We are going to do Marine Corps marksmanship competitions. We are going to do training that is going to make you more lethal whenever you go to combat.
Mm-hmm. That's dude. Back in the day, the bullseye was all there was.
Yeah,
that was most competition. Some weirdo freaking guys were out there running around shooting targets with pistols somewhere, but nobody really knew. Everybody taught bullseye and Camp Perry and all that. now action shooting has taken over. Bullseye is like FUD Central, man. Nobody does that. Nobody shoots bullseye. It's boring, and it's like it is just it's arduous. It's not fun. I mean, some people don't get me wrong. I know some guys that love that, but you look at what bullseye has become. If you look in the modern, the modern culture, bullseye has basically it's kind of going away, and it's being replaced by PRS, which is still action driven, but it's far more practical. Like I'm going to get into PRS. I'm going to build a 22 long rifle gun and just work position work before I ever go out through PRS course. Because I'll tell you what, I was distinguished honor grad from the SF sniper course and all that. Dude, I'll get my ass handed to me if I go out there on a PRS thing by like some 26-year-old chick and her boyfriend. Like and just like because people can shoot now.
And so her boyfriend's boyfriend.
Yeah. But it's like PRS is something that's like bullseye is it's an archaic. It's out of date. PRS to me takes over that realm. But as far as the Marine Corps marksmanship unit and the Army marksmanship unit, the action shooting has taken over. USPSA, 3-gun, that kind of stuff, and that is infinitely more applicable to a infantryman in 0311 on the ground fighting. That is 100% applicable. That skill, the balance of speed and accuracy, that is hugely important. And then if you go one step further, going to the PRS side of it, dude, the hogs will use that shit, man. Snipers that's sniper stuff. That's getting in position and getting, a 623-yard shot off in a specified amount of time on an 8-inch plate. So that the action nature of shooting is changing all of that. But back in the day, like you said, you go shoot bullseye stuff. It's like I was never interested in it. I never had any interest in going to the Marine Corps marksmanship unit or the Army marksmanship unit when I was in the Army because it just bored me. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't do that, of course.
And one thing that's kind of frustrating when you actually sit back and look at how long it took to adopt what the Marine Corps is doing, I could say that I brought USPSA to the Marine Corps shooting team. I brought an action pistol team to the Marine Corps shooting team, and that was in 2020, 2019, 2020. I can't 2019. When did USPSA come around? What, 1976?
Yeah.
Why the fuck did it take so long? And there was like
entrenched systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3-gun, 3-gun's been around, or 3-gun's been around since the 80s and 90s, like old school 3-gun. That didn't come into the Marine Corps shooting team until 2009, 2010 is when they first started bringing it officially onto the team. I get it. Organizations are slow to change, but it's like, at least we are in a period now on the Marine Corps shooting team to where the information is out there, people know where to find that information, and people are connected to the entire industry that's on the team now, to where if there's a new sport, like it didn't take long for the Marine Corps shooting team to start doing, night shooting. Like we constantly talk, like since I came in the Marine Corps, we own the night. No, we fucking don't. Now we are actually able to teach and instruct what it is to shoot at night accurately and fast, just as accurate and fast almost as if it's the daytime. Like there wasn't much long of a transition. PRS, we have a PRS team on the Marine Corps shooting team now. Like, holy shit. Like, and PRS didn't get really big until 2016, 2017. Yeah. I would say the fall of 3-Gun Nation, everybody went to PRS, and now, we have a PRS team on the Marine Corps shooting team. Like, this is amazing.
And that's again, social media has a lot of freaking warts and freaking ugliness, but there's something good about it because it exposes people that like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like I would never in a million years think about doing long range bolt gun stuff. It just doesn't. I'm a fidgety, wacky fucker. I can do it good. I mean, I was like I said, I did well in the course, but it's not my thing. But I'm going to get into PRS because it's fun, because you're running down trails and getting into weird positions and shooting. I like the pressure and the speed part of it because to me, it's more realistic. It's like it's more applicable, and I think that people start to see that, and it actually looks fun. You look at Camp Parachute and Bullseye, and one person that shoots, that likes shooting, one person in 100, if that, it appeals to, if that. Probably one person in 1,000. But you look at it, look at some guy running up a mountain trail and shooting through a crook of a tree at an angle at at 520 yards. That looks fucking cool. Like it's it's so much more. It's the application of marksmanship under inconsistent or non-standard conditions. It is so much better than that known distance. I already know the data. I know my dope. I'm like, no, it's not for a military shooter. That the action shooting sports across the board, USPSA, 2-gun, 3-gun, PCC, even, it's still a rifle. You're still shooting a rifle at a high rate of speed. PRS, all of that is so much more beneficial.
And I'm going to add something. And I don't have a problem with any of the shooting sports. Where I have a problem with shooting sports, the old antiquated shooting sports, is in the military. Yeah. Bullseye has no place of any of the shooting disciplines in the military. Like, take it the fuck out. Yeah. Teach the fundamentals at boot camp. Let the Marines learn another set of skills that's going to save their lives later on down the line.
Can I throw something in on that?
Yeah.
Something that it always bothered me. And in the rifle, your standard, Marine Corps rifle qual, the thing that I always thought was completely lacking, the marksmanship piece was obviously really good. I mean, all the snapping in we did and everything, it paid dividends. I mean, the fact that you're a recruit can shoot at 500 yards, like that's legit. The thing that I saw as a huge deficiency was weapons handling. People left, and even when they went to freaking SOI and stuff like that, they left there. They couldn't really run their gun. Like, I never got.
I got a jam.
Malfunctions.
Yeah. Ever. Hey, I got a jam. Can I need an alibi, or can you come clear out my jam?
Yeah, it happens a lot too. It's quite unfortunate. Yeah, just listening to you guys talk. Just wanted to throw out some points. Mike, I agree with you. Social media, it does have a lot of warts, but I agree the fact that it's making these things a lot more visible. And this entire thing is a conversation, right? It's not about like instructors trying to like tear each other down or nothing. I think a lot of people look at what Ben Stater's doing and they look at his demeanor and how aggressive he is, and they're like, oh, he's just causing drama. Like, no, he's seeing stuff that's myopic, fucked up, and backwards, and he's calling it out. That's one of the good things about social media platforms, is that if you see something that's wrong, then there's going to be someone that's also calling it out. And that shows you, like, instead, like, I think previously we just went to these courses and we got taught by these dudes with really long resumes and we didn't know any better. But now we do. Now we do because there's a conversation going on in social media. So just, I look past the Pit Vipers and all the other stuff that Ben's doing. Honestly, he's one of the best instructors I've ever had. Partly because he's a dick. He told me a lot of things within the 2 days that I was there. I was like, God damn, there's a lot of fundamentals I got to work on. And like, there was one point which I shot an array and he just yelled, fucking bullshit. He's like, you are not pushing fast enough. He's like, dude, I know you have it in you. Like, that's what you need. Like, you're paying the man good money. You want to like put your ego aside, leave it at the door, and go learn some good stuff. The culture is changing. Like, we talked about a lot of things. Bullseye was so entrenched for a long time, it's finally losing its grip. And I think it's the same thing with these instructors, man. Like, a lot of these instructors that come out and say they're SF, they've been law enforcement all these years, they have all these different quals. I want to say, like, the optimistic side of me believes that is going to change. It's just going to take time, because a lot of these dudes are old timers and they've been around a long time. And like Matt just experienced this last week, they literally come out and they paint by numbers and they collect their check. But eventually those guys, like, nobody's following in their footsteps. No one's looking at them. Hopefully not. I think there are some cases. But I think people are getting exposed to so many other types of instruction that they're learning there's better stuff out there. There's better stuff on the internet already. Like, you can go out and watch YouTube videos of stuff that's infinitely better than what you would get for paying $700 for what you experience, Matt. So the culture is changing. It just takes time. In the meantime, like, it's good that we're having these conversations. I think there's a good venue for these conversations. Matt, you had a lot going on through your head, but you weren't about to like lay it on your instructor, because I think you knew that he's an entrenched, like, retired, whatever, old FUD dude, and he's probably not going to listen.
Well,
Similarly, go ahead.
No, it's funny because, like, whenever he said he was a sheriff, like where I live, I immediately messaged a buddy of mine who was a sheriff. Hey, do you know this dude? Immediately, my buddy called me in the middle of class, and I hit the hang up button. I was like, I'll call you in a little bit. And I called him, called him back, and I was like, all right, lay it on me. He's like, that dude is fucking hot garbage. He has a bad reputation. Freaking, he's a piece of shit. And I was just like, thank fucking God that is
Yeah.
recognized where you are, because
Always,
if it wasn't, that would be fucking bad.
there's always a trail.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think someone's peers and the people that work for that person are going to say it the loudest. But yes, these things will change. In the meantime, like, yeah, there are good places. This is a good forum to have these conversations. If you're like qualling on the range and your range coach is telling you stuff that's like completely out of left field, probably not the best time to engage that conversation. But you can bring up competition shooting. They're like, hey, you're pretty good. Like, yeah, I shoot competitions. If you're a coach, you probably know a lot about shooting. Maybe you should come out and see what you're capable of. Kind of goad them into showing up so they can start that process of realizing and learning, just like we all did. We all used to think we're hot shit, and then we did competitions, and we learned a whole lot. But yeah, just keep.
You remind me of something else that happened while out there. One of those individuals who was out there to requal, he was like, we struck up a conversation. He was a nice enough guy, and I mentioned that I was a competition shooter, and he didn't know my background. He just heard that I was a competition shooter, and he was like, oh well, I earned my place out somewhere else doing real world stuff. And like he was, the guy said he's a CIA guy. And one, he's not a real CIA guy. He's not GRS or ground branch or anything like that, or he wouldn't be going to that course.
Mhm.
It was also a requal, so
Yeah,
you guys were
yeah.
making up.
No,
Or,
it's their yearly
okay,
qualification, yearly requalification.
okay.
So he's not ground branch. He is a security officer, some whatever you want to call it. So like by him making that statement and then saying he was Air Force Security Forces, like
Oh, God.
I was like, all right, dude. So I just retired from the Marine Corps after 20 years in the infantry. He's like, oh, so you know exactly what I mean. I was like,
Actually, yeah.
what?
And some, and some.
Yeah, and
No,
some, and I shoot competitively. And I guess what I'm trying to say, if there are any of you tactical Timmies out there, that have a problem with competitive shooting or performance on demand, or what's the term you used, Mike? Um,
high,
high
performance,
performance shooting.
high performance marksmanship is what it is.
Yeah, high performance marksmanship. If you have a fucking problem with it, how about you show up and actually put your skills on demand?
Yeah.
Like contact me. I'll bring you out to a match. I don't care. And let's see if you can shoot.
Yeah.
Like, let's see you put your skills on demand.
Yeah. It's I look at so many people out there that are so afraid to do that. And it's funny because I just moved out here to Salt Lake, and I shot a couple of weeks ago before I went on the road. And I'll be shooting again next week and the week after. But I go out and shoot, and one of the consistent comments and what I consider a big compliment that I get is, "Wow, it's really cool that you come out and compete." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, anybody can come out?" Like, "No, you do this for a living, and I know most guys that teach for a living won't compete." I'm like, it tells me that you're afraid. You're afraid to tell. Guess what? You're going to get your ass handed to you by some old dude or some chick or whatever. Like, dude, step up and do it and learn something and get better. But you're never going to be better by hiding from competition. And the idea that you don't understand. I say it every time when people don't understand the difference, okay, between tactics and marksmanship, then you miss the whole boat. Because it's high speed marksmanship, high performance marksmanship is a requirement in in basically anything that is time sensitive with firearms, whether it's competition or it's a combative engagement. So high performance marksmanship, it always counts. It always counts. The application of it varies. And so don't blend tactics with marksmanship. And they still don't get it. They still try and say that because then they don't have to identify that I don't have any high performance marksmanship skill.
And I'll add something to it. Okay, for all those guys who say, oh, competition is a training scar, competition isn't realistic, this and that. All right, here's an aspect to competition where it is like it is completely relevant. Whenever you are in a gunfight, we use the term OODA loop: observe, orient, direct, act, or decide, act. That is something you are constantly doing, whether you're a cop on the streets or you're in the streets of Iraq, Ramadi, wherever. You're constantly doing the OODA loop cycle in competition and in tactics. So don't tell me that it's not relevant. Another aspect to it is, okay, so what's my situation? Okay, I'm going to this match. What's my situation? I have to plan these stages out. I have to figure out what the stage designs are. I have to figure out how I'm going to attack each stage. I look at a stage as if I'm preparing for an attack. What guns am I going to use for it? What's the best way I can attack this so I can win? And so don't tell me that it's not relevant. If you say it creates training scars, how? You can create training scars just by training alone because you're not training properly. You can create training scars by dry firing improperly. So you can create training scars by doing anything, but if you're doing things the right way, then at least you're getting out there and you're performing and you're doing it for real.
There's a couple things, man. To me, there's no such thing as a training scar. There's just bad training.
Yeah.
People go, oh, it's a training scar. There's fucking bad training. You had bad training.
Yeah.
That scar, you learned it wrong. So
Yeah.
when they talk about training scars, I just look at them and go, no, there's no such thing. You just had bad training.
Yep.
Also, when you look at hold on a second, vehicle. Okay, there you go. When you look at a stage, okay, talk about the applicability. People say, oh, it'll get you killed on the street. It doesn't apply, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I have a basic plan or understanding of a stage. What do I have to manage? I have to do the high performance marksmanship stuff, okay, at a high level. I have to move in and out of positions. I have to engage targets rapidly, some surgically, some not. Okay, I have to keep track of an ammunition load. I have to reload the gun while I'm moving. I have to clear malfunctions if they happen. Okay, if I set up a stage and I go, okay, when I get to this port, if I shoot it clean, I'll go to slide lock on that last piece of steel, and then I can reload. I can do a slide lock reload while I'm moving to my next position. Okay, I have to keep track of that, and if I drop a shot and make up a shot, then I know I have to change my reload to an earlier time. I'm constantly managing my ammunition load. I'm constantly adjusting my plan. I'm constantly adapting to the situation on the ground, which is just like in combat. Okay, you are constantly reevaluating how much ammo do we have? Do we need more 7.62 for the guns? Were we in contact longer than we thought? You're moving people around, and at an individual level, those guys are managing their own ammo loads. If they're 31s, they're managing their gun teams. Like the thought process and the continual adaptation as you move and shoot is just shrunk down to 23 seconds and 32 rounds on a field stage. When you look at that in a combative environment, it can go on for hours. For days. Yeah. So it's like when they say it doesn't apply, it's bullshit. It directly applies. It is a skill, a processing skill that integrates your brain and your gun and then the environment all together. And it's constantly swirling around and changing. It's constantly changing. And so it's like, this is part of a block that I actually give in a course. Dude, it is directly applicable. Because it's marksmanship and thinking. It's not tactics.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, I think we're almost wrapping up. Mike, I appreciate you giving us your time. I know you're on the range right now. I know you're itching to get some trigger time in. Appreciate you taking the time and talking to us about what's really a very important subject to both of us. So before we sign off, anything else from either of you gentlemen? Mike, we'll go with you first.
No, and just question everything. Get out and train hard and question everything. Then should be able to explain to you what they're doing, why they're doing it, how it works, what the most likely failure points or mistakes are, how to mitigate those. If they can't explain it to you, then you really need to turn to John Desai. Question it. Question everything.
To go off of that, vet everything. You know, whenever you're going anywhere for training, vet your instructor prior to going there. See what their background is, see what they're doing, you know, see how they train, see if they have any kind of social media, you know, profile footprint. That way you can see, okay, what am I going to be participating in? How can I best prepare for this? Or do I just want to say fuck this guy and find somewhere else to go?
It's your money. And if there's no videos of them actually shooting, you might want to reconsider.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, I thought this was a great episode, really great conversation, guys. If you want to know how to get into competition shooting, hit up myself, Matt, or Mike. We can probably put you in touch with the competition local to you. If you're in the Marine Corps, hit up Matt and myself. The first Marine Corps marksmanship competition just went off. They are shooting competitions next week. They just did a night match last night at the end of October, which is phenomenal. And if you're looking for training, hit up Mike. He's at the CTC Solutions. We're going to drop his handle in the description for this episode. But thank you all for listening and hope you have a good one.